Have you ever wondered, how can I set and maintain healthy boundaries with family members? What are healthy boundaries? How can I communicate them and stick to them without feeling guilty? What are examples of boundaries in romantic relationships? And is it okay for me to have different boundaries than my partner? In this video, you and I are going to address those questions as we cover practical strategies on how to set effective boundaries. Because what if I told you that not only are boundaries necessary for us to build genuine connections with the people we care about, but they're also a very useful tool to build your confidence, your self-respect, and also increase your self-esteem. And I'm going to share with you how you can use them to do exactly that for yourself. Welcome to Take Your Power Back. My name is Kisia. Let's get started. If you've been following along, you know that we've explored the crucial first steps of the alignment code, gaining awareness of our limiting subconscious conditioning and beginning the journey of healing, so we can shift our nervous system from a state of chronic dysregulation to a state of calm and clarity. Now we arrive at step 3, because the truth is, all the healing and self-awareness in the world will not fully blossom if we don't have effective boundaries in place. Before we get to the point where we cover how to set effective boundaries in relationships that naturally have an imbalanced power dynamic, for example, with your parents, bosses, or anyone who is in a perceived position of power in relation to you, we first need to understand the core principle behind effective boundaries, which is controlling your behavior and not the other person's behavior. What is the one thing in this entire life that you have complete 100% control of? Yourself. Think about that for a second. Think about it. The moment you feel the need to control someone else is the moment you need to pause and check yourself. Because guess what? The person you feel like you need to control, they now have a hold on you. The more you try to pull their strings, the more power they have over your emotions. And the strength of that power is directly proportional to how strongly you feel the need to control them. And the thing is, people can feel, usually they can feel it when they have that kind of influence over you. When they know their actions can send you spiraling or make you crash out, they know they've hooked you in. This is what sets up a dangerous dance of imbalanced power dynamics, where the both of you are stuck in the same old emotionally exhausting patterns. 1 minute you're on top because the power is swinging in your favor for one reason or another, and then they do something, and just like that, they have the upper hand again, and then the passive-aggressive games begin just so you can try to swing the power back in your side. This roller coaster of highs and lows becomes addictive, and your brain starts to confuse the chaos for some kind of intense connection. But let's be real, that is the fastest way to nurture codependency, and we all know that rarely ends well for anyone. This is why boundaries are non-negotiable when it comes to building genuine soul-level connections. And for these boundaries to actually work, the golden rule is this: control your actions, not theirs. So what does that look like? How do we set boundaries that are all about our behavior? Let's dive in. Let's break this down with some real-life examples so you can see the difference crystal clear. Instead of, "You need to stop yelling at me when we disagree," try this: "I will not stay in situations where I'm being yelled at during a disagreement." Do you see the difference? Do you see it? Let's look at another one. Instead of, "My boss needs to stop giving me last-minute tasks," try this: "I will communicate my availability and limitations clearly. If last-minute tasks consistently cross my boundaries, I'll discuss workload management, or I will explore other options for myself." Let's look at one more in the context of dealing with family. Instead of, "Dad, Mom, you're always criticizing my career choices. This is my life. You need to stop judging me. And from now on, just keep your opinions to yourself." Try this: "Dad, Mom, I value our relationship and I'm happy to share my life with you. However, if our conversations keep turning into criticism of my career, I will politely end the conversation and I will step away. We can reconnect later and talk about other things." So what is the big difference that we're seeing here? It boils down to the following 5 things. Number one is focus. Boundaries that aim to control your behavior are all about you. They're about your actions, your choices, and your limits. Boundaries that try to control others are about them and what you want them to stop doing. Number two is the language used. The key difference in wording is this. When you're setting boundaries that aim to control your behavior, usually the sentence starts with I and it focuses on what you will do. When you're trying to control their behavior, the sentence starts with you and it tells them what they should or shouldn't do. Number three is empowerment. Controlling your behavior puts you in the driver's seat. You're deciding how you will respond and what you will tolerate. Trying to control others, in many cases, will leave you feeling frustrated and powerless because we can't actually force someone to change. Number four is respect. Setting I will boundaries respects the other person's autonomy, even though you don't fully agree with their behavior. You're not trying to dictate their feelings or actions, just how you will respond to them. You need to stop boundaries can feel disrespectful and even demanding. Number five is effectiveness. Ultimately, you can only fully control yourself. Boundaries that are focused on your actions are far more likely to be effective in protecting your well-being because they rely on what you can do. And those key differences we just unpacked actually give us a fantastic starting point when it comes to understanding exactly what healthy boundaries are. Because they are rooted in the same principle. They're about you. They're about your needs, your limits, and your choices. They are not about trying to control the other person's thoughts, feelings, or actions. So with that in mind, let's dive deeper into the characteristics of healthy boundaries. So we know effective boundaries aim to control your behavior and not somebody else's behavior. But what are healthy boundaries and how do they actually boost your confidence, your self-respect, and your self-esteem? Let's break it down. First, self-respect is the foundation. Think of boundaries as a way of saying to yourself, my well-being matters. When you value your time, your energy, and your emotional space, you naturally want to protect them. And guess what? That self-respect, it's not just an internal feeling. It actually radiates outwards and communicates to people how you expect to be treated. Even if you haven't always prioritized yourself, setting boundaries is the first step in declaring, moving forward, I come first. Second thing, clear communication is key. Unfortunately, people are not mind readers, so they can't know what our boundaries are if we don't tell them. It is so important for you to clearly state what you are okay with and what crosses a line for you. Yes, this might feel uncomfortable at first. You might worry about disagreeing or disappointing someone. But pushing through that discomfort is an act of courage, and it screams, my long-term well-being is worth experiencing this temporary discomfort. The third thing is protecting your precious time and energy. Have you ever felt drained after having an interaction with someone? Sometimes when we spend time with certain people, we come back feeling energized. And in other cases, we come back feeling depleted. Like we spent the whole time giving out something without getting anything in return. So we feel drained. Healthy boundaries are like your energetic shield. They prevent that gradual process of resentment growing. Because resentment is exactly what comes in when you constantly feel depleted because of an imbalanced power dynamic. By setting limits, you're saying, my time and energy are valuable and I need to replenish them for myself and the things that I love. Maybe I can occasionally share it with you, but I have to prioritize directing it to myself. The fourth thing is owning your emotions and not theirs. Healthy boundaries draw a clear line. Your feelings are your responsibility and their feelings are their responsibility. You can't control how someone reacts to your boundaries, but you can control how their actions impact you. And the confidence booster is this. Actively learning how to regulate your own emotions builds an inner strength, a solid foundation that makes you feel safe and secure. Enough for you to step out of your comfort zone, connect with others authentically, and build those genuine relationships that you crave. You might be thinking, Kisia, all of this sounds great. But what about when you can't walk away? What about when the power dynamic feels like it's been stacked against you? I get it. I've been there. We've all been there, whether it's with a parent, a boss, or someone else who is in a position of authority. Navigating boundaries in these kind of situations requires a slightly different approach. So let's get real about how to protect yourself and your needs when the power dynamic is not equal. So we've established what healthy, self-focused boundaries look like. But what happens when the power dynamic in a relationship feels uneven? Because I'm sure many of us find ourselves in such situations. It's a common challenge and it requires a thoughtful approach. The underlying principle of boundaries that aim to control your behavior is still important in these cases. What might need to be adapted is how we communicate and implement these boundaries. And in these cases of imbalanced power dynamics, it is so important to make sure that you are communicating with respect and also with firmness. Let's look at some effective strategies for these unique situations. First, start by acknowledging to yourself that these situations can feel slightly more challenging, and remind yourself that even in these dynamics, you still control your actions and your responses. I'll give specific strategies for different situations. So when it comes to parents or any other family member, focus on choosing your battles because not everything deserves your attention. Have situational awareness. Sometimes you can choose to limit the information that you share and even creating emotional or physical distance when needed. Focus on what you can control, which is your reaction and time spent. For your bosses, let's say you would like to talk about workload and your capacity to handle it. Focus on clear communication, no ambiguous statements. Don't beat around the bush. When you say things respectfully and directly, it makes you sound more sure of yourself. Being respectful involves letting them see that you understand they are in a position of authority, and as much as you're there for self-advocacy, you're not trying to undermine their position. You can also propose certain solutions that you can discuss together. And remember to always document your agreements. Keep a record of everything you discuss and agree on. If that does nothing and you still don't appreciate how you're being treated, remember you have the ability to do something about it. Create a plan on how you can gradually begin to look for workplaces that value your time and your energy. It may not happen immediately, but it is a change that is very possible to make if you map it out for yourself. For any other authority figure, identify the specific power dynamic and tailor the approach to fit that dynamic. Remember that the idea is to be respectful and also to be firm with how you communicate your limits. Because it's so important to advocate for your needs even when it feels challenging, sometimes especially when it feels challenging. Also, try to avoid letting things slide for too long because that makes it difficult for you to now establish a boundary. I sometimes let things slide the first time because sometimes people slip up. They make a mistake, so I give the benefit of doubt. But I always address it either by the second or third time. It doesn't get to a third time if I have not addressed it. Setting these boundaries can lead to short-term discomfort in many cases, but in the long run, they lead to healthier, more respectful relationships. The common thread when dealing with authority figures is the need for clear, firm, and respectful communication, because you're finding balance between respect and self-advocacy, protecting your needs and limits even when it feels uncomfortable. But for you to do this effectively, you must have a clear sense of what you must stand firm on and what you're willing to be more flexible about. That's why it's so important for you to distinguish between your negotiable and non-negotiable boundaries, which is what we're going to cover next. Did you know that when it comes to boundaries, past experiences, both positive and negative ones, often shape what feels fundamentally important for our safety and well-being, as well as shaping what we feel we can be a bit more flexible with. Let me give a few examples. Someone who has a history of being taken advantage of financially might have a non-negotiable boundary when it comes to lending money. Someone who grew up in a household where disagreements came with a lot of yelling and a lot of cussing each other out might have a non-negotiable boundary in their adult relationships when it comes to yelling during disagreements. It's important to acknowledge that other people have different past experiences, and therefore different boundaries and different levels of understanding. It's okay to have different boundaries from your family members, your friends, and even your romantic partner. This is why clear communication is so important, because what might seem like an obvious boundary to you might not be obvious to somebody else. Have empathy for the other person and their experiences, but not at the expense of your non-negotiable boundaries. Is it possible to work with each other and find a middle ground? Absolutely. In whatever way that looks like for both of you, as long as both people feel seen, heard, and considered. In some cases, you might not feel comfortable enough with sharing the reason behind your non-negotiable boundary. Maybe because it's a professional relationship, so it doesn't feel appropriate to share intimate details about your past. Or even if it's more of a casual relationship, maybe you haven't reached that level where you feel close enough to share certain details. It's also very common to feel guilty when you're setting boundaries, especially if you fear disappointing someone or facing their disapproval. I've experienced this myself. Remember that this guilt is coming from the old patterns of prioritizing other people's needs over your own. Acknowledge the feeling, but don't let it dictate your actions because your boundaries are there to protect you. If I find myself in a situation where someone consistently fails to respect a boundary that I know I cannot be flexible with, then I take that as a sign of incompatibility and I remove myself from the situation. Remember the core principle. Effective boundaries aim to control your behavior and not the other person's behavior. The boundaries are there to protect you. To understand your non-negotiables, identify what is absolutely essential for you to feel safe, respected, and authentic. Consider what your fundamental needs are, whether that is emotionally, physically, financially, and even mentally. Boundaries that aim to protect these areas of life, in many cases, are the ones that are non-negotiable. Sometimes, a sign that something is a non-negotiable boundary for you is the fact that it evokes a very strong negative feeling inside you. That feeling is your body's way of signaling you to tell you that a boundary is being crossed. If you're practicing the emotional regulation skills we covered in our video for step number 2 of the alignment code, healing, then you can learn to trust that feeling and use it as a guide. Okay, let's bring it all together. In this video, we've covered a lot of ground. From understanding that effective boundaries are about controlling your behavior and not other people, to learning how to set healthy boundaries that do exactly that. We also explored what healthy boundaries are and how they fuel your confidence and self-respect. We tackled the complexities of navigating boundaries in relationships that naturally have an imbalanced power dynamic. And finally, we looked at how to determine your negotiable and non-negotiable boundaries so you can know when to stand firm and when to be flexible. Remember that this is all about taking ownership of your well-being. It's about defining how you're treated regardless of the situation. If you found this video helpful, don't be shy. Hit the like button, it helps the channel, and it also tells me that you like such content so I can make more of it. Now, I want to hear from you in the comments. What section of this video resonated with you the most? Was it the part about imbalanced power dynamics, or maybe the breakdown of negotiable and non-negotiable boundaries? Also, have you ever been in a situation where you struggled to set a boundary with someone who you felt had more authority than you? Share your experiences with us in the comments if you feel comfortable, because your insights can be incredibly valuable for us as a community. To keep this conversation going and to connect further, be sure to follow me on Instagram and TikTok for regular insights and so we can keep engaging with each other. Thank you so much for watching, and remember, setting boundaries is an act of self-love. You deserve to feel safe, respected, and empowered in all your relationships.